The space station hung like a silver jewel above a small, blue and green planet. Ships of every shape and color drifted in the station's orbit, docking in ports that hummed with activity. Aliens of all kinds moved through the corridors, some tall and thin with glowing eyes, others short and armored with scales like polished stone. Humans were rare here, and most aliens thought them fragile, strange, and sometimes amusing. Ethan sat alone in the lounge of Dock 7, a quiet corner away from the busy crowds. He wore a simple uniform, dark blue with silver trim, which marked him as a civilian. His brown hair fell over his forehead, and his dark eyes scanned the room calmly. Where other species spoke loudly, gestured wildly, or glowed to show emotion, Ethan remained still, his presence almost serene. It was not fear that kept him quiet. It was observation. He watched the way the aliens moved, their body language, and the tiny details that revealed their intentions. Most aliens thought him strange. One reason was the calm confidence in his movements. When a group of small, winged aliens nearly bumped into him, Ethan simply adjusted his seat slightly, and they nearly toppled over. Instead of anger or fear, he gave them a small, amused smile. One alien whispered to another, "Does he not care?" But Ethan did care. He simply understood things they did not. Humans had a strange way of noticing things without panic, of reading the environment and reacting in ways that surprised other species. Zira had been watching him from across the lounge. She was an alien of medium height, with smooth lavender skin and bright, golden eyes that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Her long hair shimmered with streaks of silver, moving slightly even though there was no wind. She enjoyed teasing others, testing how beings reacted under small pressures. To her, the human sitting quietly alone seemed like the perfect target for a little fun. With a mischievous smile, Zira strode toward him and dropped onto the seat beside him. "Mind if I sit?" she asked in a voice that carried a musical quality. She rested one arm lightly against the back of the seat, leaning slightly toward him in a playful gesture. Ethan looked at her, calm and steady. "Not at all," he said, his voice soft but clear. He didn't flinch, nor did he make a joke of it. For a moment, Zira's smile faltered. Most beings reacted to her teasing with surprise, anger, or flustered confusion, but Ethan simply remained himself. "Strange," she whispered to herself, tilting her head. The playful spark in her eyes stayed, but now there was a flicker of curiosity. He didn't react as she expected. "Do you often sit alone?" she asked, trying to keep her tone light, playful. She crossed her legs, casually positioning herself so it seemed like an innocent move, but with subtle strength that could push him if needed. Ethan tilted his head slightly, studying her. "Sometimes," he said. "I prefer observing before acting." Zira blinked. "Observing? That sounds boring." She expected him to laugh nervously or give a flustered answer, but he just smiled faintly. There was something about that smile, gentle, confident, almost unshakable. "You find it boring?" he asked softly. "Of course not," Zira replied quickly, a little off balance. "I just thought humans like to talk more or act more, not sit and watch." Ethan shrugged slightly. "We act when needed, otherwise we learn first." Zira frowned, intrigued. She had never met a human like this. Most humans on the station were anxious or overwhelmed by aliens' presence. Yet this one seemed different. He radiated calm, but she felt something else too, something stronger than just composure. As the lounge continued its gentle hum, a small commotion erupted at the entrance. A group of winged aliens argued loudly over a docking schedule. Most of the other species nearby hurried to intervene or moved away to avoid conflict. Ethan simply turned his gaze toward them, his eyes calm and calculating. Zira noticed him, amused at first. "You really don't react?" she asked quietly. "Why react unnecessarily?" Ethan replied, not turning his head. It will resolve itself, or I will act if it threatens someone. Zyra blinked. He was not only calm, he was confident in his ability to handle danger. Something deep inside her stirred, a mix of curiosity and respect. She had teased many beings before, but none had reacted like this. Minutes passed, and the argument resolved itself without harm. The winged aliens left, chattering angrily but unharmed. Zyra leaned back slightly, feeling a strange warmth in her chest. It was confusing, and she did not like feeling confused. You handled that very differently, she said, almost a whisper. Ethan looked at her then, for the first time directly. Different can be useful. Zyra's golden eyes widened slightly. That simple phrase, so calm, so sure, made her feel off balance. She had been joking when she sat beside him. Now, she realized, she had triggered something unexpected. Humans had presence, influence, something she could not fully name. Curiosity overwhelmed her. Why aren't you afraid? Don't you know we could— Do what? Ethan asked, smiling faintly. Hurt me? Zyra hesitated. Most aliens would have reacted aggressively or defensively, assuming humans were weak. Yet this one, sitting quietly, seemed unafraid of her, or anything. That's unusual, she murmured. Ethan shrugged again, simple, casual. I have no reason to fear unless there is cause. For a moment, silence settled over the lounge. Zyra felt a strange connection forming, one she had never experienced with anyone before. Her playful plan, meant as a joke, had awakened something in her, something curious, respectful, and cautious all at once. Do humans always stay so calm? She asked, tilting her head. Not always, Ethan replied. But we have ways of handling situations that others might not understand. Sometimes it is patience, sometimes courage, sometimes observation. All are useful. Zyra studied him carefully. She realized that human strength was subtle. It was not in flashy displays of power, but in the ability to read situations, adapt, and act when necessary. Something in her began to stir, a desire to understand him, to see how far this calm, quiet human could go. The lounge lights dimmed as the station rotated slightly, signaling evening cycles. Aliens began to leave or migrate to other areas. Zyra stayed, sitting closer, though she would never admit why. Her playful grin returned, but now it carried a hint of respect. You're interesting, she said softly, almost to herself. Ethan glanced at her, smiling faintly. I could say the same about you. The moment was small, quiet, yet it carried weight neither fully understood. Zyra's casual joke of sitting beside him had unlocked something subtle and powerful. Human presence and confidence had an effect, even on an alien mind. Zyra tried to distract herself, looking around at the lounge, but her eyes kept returning to Ethan. She had never met a human who could be both so calm and so engaging. She didn't realize that her actions, playful as they were, had triggered the first spark of a bond that could change not just her, but the station itself. Ethan, meanwhile, observed her carefully. He understood curiosity and caution, and he knew she had underestimated humans, just as most aliens did. He did not need to boast or show strength. He simply needed to exist as he was. Humans had a way of making presence count, even without words. By the time the lounge began to empty completely, both of them were aware of a subtle shift. A joke had become the start of something far larger. Neither spoke again for several minutes, but the quiet between them was no longer ordinary. It was charged with awareness, curiosity, and the beginning of respect. Zyra finally stood, stretching slightly. I suppose I should leave you to your solitude, she said, her voice lighter than usual. Ethan smiled. Or you could stay. Observation is better with company. She laughed softly, a sound like chimes in the wind. Perhaps next time, she said, though both knew that next time would come sooner than either expected. As Zira left, Ethan remained seated, calm and steady. But inside, a small, quiet anticipation stirred. Humans had a way of noticing opportunities, understanding situations, and subtly influencing events around them. That simple act, sitting beside him as a joke, had set the stage for something extraordinary. Somewhere in the station, an alien woman walked away with thoughts she did not understand. And somewhere else, a human remained, quietly prepared for whatever came next. The first spark had been struck, and neither could deny the unusual, undeniable connection that now hung between them. The station's corridors glowed with soft, ambient lights, reflecting off smooth metal walls. Activity had quieted in some sections, but the hub remained alive with beings moving between docks, shops, and living quarters. Zira moved through the corridor, her thoughts unusually tangled. The playful act of sitting beside Ethan earlier had stayed with her in ways she could not explain. She frowned, annoyed at herself. She was supposed to be confident, composed, in control. But the human had stirred something she didn't understand. Most aliens she knew found humans weak or amusing, easily startled or overwhelmed. But Ethan had been calm, even when her presence was deliberately teasing. He hadn't laughed nervously, nor had he shown anger or fear. Instead, he had smiled faintly, as if he understood something she did not. That small smile had done something strange to her, a flicker of curiosity and respect that she couldn't ignore. Meanwhile, Ethan moved through the lounge and out into the station's main hub. His steps were measured, his eyes scanning the crowd. Humans were rare on this station, and he often felt their absence more than he noticed their presence. He was careful, observant, but also aware that humans had a certain effect on others simply by being themselves. Even a casual presence could trigger cooperation, calm, or attention from those around them. As he walked, he noticed Zira in the crowd. She was watching him, subtle but undeniable. He smiled faintly, acknowledging her glance without breaking his pace. Humans often relied on observation before acting. He had learned long ago that subtle gestures could reveal intentions, and that people or aliens often underestimated a quiet, calm presence. Zira felt her heart beat faster, though she told herself it was nothing. She had not experienced this with anyone before, an individual whose calmness and confidence could shift her attention so easily. She tried to shake off the thought and focused on her tasks for the day, but every time she moved, she found her gaze drifting back to him. Back in the lounge, Ethan paused near a holographic display of arrivals and departures. A sudden alarm sounded, a small breach alert from a nearby docking port. Most aliens nearby panicked, their voices rising in alarm. Winged beings flapped nervously, armored beings bristled, and some simply froze, unsure of how to respond. Ethan moved calmly. His eyes scanned the readout, noting that the breach was minor. A small maintenance drone had drifted out of its dock and was approaching a bulkhead at an awkward angle. He didn't panic. He simply approached the port, assessing the situation. Within seconds, he activated a manual override and guided the drone safely back into the docking bay. Zira arrived just in time to see him in action. Her eyes widened. No alien she knew could remain so calm while handling the situation. Most would have yelled, flared, or acted impulsively, but Ethan's movements were smooth, precise, and confident. She felt something strange, admiration mixed with curiosity. This human was unlike anyone she had met. "You handled that very differently," she said softly, stepping beside him. Ethan glanced at her, giving a small nod. "Different can be useful," he said simply. Zira tilted her head, thinking carefully. She realized that her initial joke, sitting beside him, had triggered something she didn't understand. Humans seemed to carry a presence that influenced others. They did not need to show strength or dominance. Their calm, thoughtful actions were enough to shift the behavior of those around them. "Why aren't you afraid?" she asked, genuinely puzzled. "Most beings would panic in that situation." Ethan smiled faintly. "I have no reason to fear unless there is cause. Fear without reason does not help." Zira frowned, intrigued. She had never met someone who thought so clearly in a situation like this. Most aliens acted instinctively, relying on strength or size. Humans were different. They observed, they adapted, they used calm reasoning, and somehow that made them more powerful than many species she had encountered. As the alarms ceased, other aliens began murmuring among themselves. Some approached Ethan, asking questions about how he handled the situation. He explained calmly, simply, without showing off. His explanations were clear, concise, and practical. Zira watched closely, fascinated. "Most humans don't act like this," she said quietly. "Most humans are not placed in situations like this regularly," Ethan replied. "Experience teaches adaptation. Calmness comes with understanding." Zira's golden eyes lingered on him. She realized that humans had a subtle influence, one that could inspire respect and trust without force. Her playful joke had awakened this subtle truth. She felt a strange pull to understand him, to learn why humans were different in ways her species did not expect. Over the next few hours, they walked together through the station, discussing cultures, histories, and small curiosities. Ethan asked questions about Zira's species with genuine interest, and she found herself explaining things she usually considered trivial. Humans had a way of making others reveal information naturally, without pressure. She was impressed, though she wouldn't admit it aloud. At one point, they passed a small market area where merchants displayed exotic goods from distant worlds. Zira stopped at a stall displaying intricate crystal devices. She leaned slightly toward Ethan, pointing to one with her slender fingers. "This is interesting," she said. "It measures fluctuations in energy fields, but the calculations seem off." Ethan examined the device. His eyes narrowed slightly as he considered its function. "It may be designed for a specific type of energy source," he suggested. "If the source differs, the readings could be inaccurate." Zira's eyes widened. No alien had ever examined one of her technological devices so calmly, so accurately, and offered a solution without criticism or doubt. Humans were indeed unusual, subtle, quiet, and capable of understanding more than they appeared. Hours passed like this, filled with conversation, observation, and small shared experiences. Zira felt her initial playfulness transform into something deeper. She admired Ethan's calmness, his insight, and his quiet ability to influence situations. She had thought the joke of sitting beside him would be fleeting, but now it seemed like the start of something important. As the station shifted into its evening cycle, lights dimming and hums growing softer, a new alert sounded. A minor disturbance in a docking bay on the other side of the station. Most aliens panicked, unsure of how to respond. Zira instinctively turned to Ethan. He nodded, calm as ever. "Let's see what's happening," he said. Together they moved quickly. Where others hesitated, Ethan acted decisively, guiding Zira and nearby aliens safely to a control panel. The disturbance turned out to be a minor power fluctuation affecting small systems, nothing dangerous. But Ethan's calm presence prevented chaos. Zira realized then that her initial joke had awakened more than curiosity. It had revealed a fundamental human trait. Humans were adaptable, resilient, and capable of influencing others simply through their presence. Her feelings of amusement had shifted into respect and fascination. After the disturbance was resolved, Zira leaned against a rail, watching the stars outside the station's viewports. She thought about the human who had caused her emotions to shift so unexpectedly. A joke, a playful gesture, had triggered something she could not ignore. Ethan joined her, quiet but steady. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. I think so," Zira replied, her voice soft. "You are different from anyone I have met." "Different can be useful," Ethan said again, smiling faintly. Zira laughed softly, a sound like wind through crystal. "I suppose I have learned that now," she said. She did not realize it yet, but her casual joke, sitting beside him, had started a chain of events that would change her perspective and, perhaps, the station itself. As they watched the stars, a quiet understanding grew between them. Humans had a way of inspiring respect, courage, and curiosity without demanding it. Zira felt the bond of that understanding, unspoken yet undeniable. The first spark had been struck, and it burned quietly, waiting to grow. Both of them knew without words that the future held challenges, surprises, and perhaps even friendship, the likes of which neither had experienced before. For Zira, the lesson was clear. Humans were far more than they appeared. And for Ethan, the station offered endless opportunities to observe, learn, and perhaps unintentionally inspire. The playful gesture of sitting beside him had become the beginning of something extraordinary, something neither of them could yet fully understand, but both could feel quietly in the back of their minds. The stars outside twinkled silently, indifferent to the small drama of two beings from different worlds. But within the station, a subtle shift had begun, and the human presence at its center was impossible to ignore. The space station had settled into its evening rhythm, lights dimmed to a gentle glow, and the hum of engines and life support systems filling the quiet spaces. Yet beneath the calm, tension had begun to stir. A small fleet of alien mercenaries had docked at the outer bays. Their presence was suspicious. Their reputation across the sector was that of troublemakers, skilled in intimidation and theft. Ethan moved through the station with his usual calmness, observing every detail. His instincts, sharpened by years of experience, told him that the mercenaries were here for more than just supplies. Zira noticed him, her golden eyes narrowing slightly. The playful, teasing curiosity she had felt before now mixed with a cautious respect. She could feel it too. Something was about to happen. The first sign came quickly. A loud crash echoed through one of the main docking corridors. Shipping crates toppled, alarms rang, and the usual crowd panicked. Alien merchants screamed, winged beings flapped wildly, and armored species braced for impact. Most beings froze or fled, unsure how to respond. Ethan remained calm, his brown eyes scanning the scene. He stepped forward, moving confidently into the chaos. Where others hesitated, he acted. He quickly assessed the movement of the mercenaries, noting the positions of each aggressive individual. Zira followed close behind, instinctively trusting him. Though she was strong and capable, she realized that Ethan's calm, calculated approach made her feel safer than her own training ever had. Most aliens assumed strength alone would command a situation, but Ethan demonstrated something different. Humans had a unique combination of courage, adaptability, and clarity that made them unpredictable and effective. The first mercenary lunged toward a merchant, demanding payment for safe passage. The merchant froze in fear, unable to act. Ethan stepped in, positioning himself between the two. "Step back," he said quietly but firmly. The mercenary laughed, assuming the human would falter. Most humans would, under the pressure of a larger, stronger alien. But Ethan did not move. His calm presence, his unwavering eyes, made the mercenary pause. There was no threat in Ethan's voice, only quiet confidence, but it carried weight. Zyra watched in awe. She had seen her species dominate weaker beings through size, strength, or intimidation. But humans were different. They didn't need to threaten or shout. Their presence alone influenced those around them. The mercenary growled and swung a heavy weapon, expecting Ethan to flinch. Ethan shifted slightly, using precise timing and positioning to redirect the blow harmlessly, sending the mercenary stumbling forward. Others rushed to assist their comrade, but Ethan's calm, measured actions gave the merchant time to move to safety. Zyra realized then that the playful joke she had made days ago, sitting beside him, had awakened more than curiosity. Humans had an instinctive courage and adaptability that other species often underestimated. Ethan's quiet presence inspired courage in others, even without words. She felt a mixture of awe and admiration rising inside her. The mercenaries regrouped, circling him. Most expected him to panic or flee, but Ethan remained steady. His movements were economical but precise, designed to protect others while avoiding unnecessary conflict. Every step he took was deliberate. Zyra noticed how others began to adjust to his presence. Merchants who had frozen started following his subtle cues. Winged aliens moved with slightly less panic. Armored ones adjusted their positions more strategically. Humans had a strange, almost invisible ability to influence others by observation, calm, and decisive action. Ethan guided the crowd to safer areas while positioning himself to intercept potential threats. One of the larger mercenaries lunged from the side, aiming to strike him. Ethan dodged with minimal movement and gently pushed the mercenary back, redirecting his momentum so that he stumbled but remained unharmed. Zyra stepped closer, instinctively ready to help. But she felt something strange, an unusual confidence in him. He did not need her assistance in the same way she needed to provide it. Humans could adapt, calculate, and act under pressure in ways even trained aliens could not fully anticipate. A tense silence fell over the immediate area. The mercenaries were frustrated. Their usual tactics of intimidation and fear were not working. Ethan's calm demeanor, his quiet precision, and his ability to anticipate their moves made them hesitate. "You are not like other humans," Zyra whispered to herself. She felt a mixture of surprise and admiration. The playful, teasing curiosity that had begun with a joke now transformed into a deep respect. Humans were extraordinary in subtle ways aliens often overlooked. Ethan noticed her observation. "Humans are capable," he said softly. "We act when needed. We plan when possible. We adapt." Zyra nodded slowly, realizing how true this was. Most beings relied on instinct or strength alone. Humans combined thought, courage, and observation, creating a presence that could influence outcomes even against overwhelming odds. The mercenaries, frustrated and confused by Ethan's calmness, attempted a coordinated strike. Ethan anticipated their moves, using their momentum against them. They stumbled, disoriented by the unexpected resistance. The human's adaptability, paired with quick calculation, allowed him to protect the civilians around him without harming anyone unnecessarily. Zyra was both shocked and fascinated. She had thought a human's role was minor in such situations. She had underestimated the potential power of calm, strategic action. Humans did not need to overpower. They needed to act with clarity and courage. After several tense moments, the mercenaries realized they were not in control. Their plans to intimidate and dominate were failing. Some began to retreat, wary of the human who had disrupted their expectations. Ethan remained calm, observing their withdrawal to ensure the crowd's safety. Zyra stepped forward, her admiration clear in her golden eyes. "You handled that perfectly," she said softly. Ethan gave a small nod. "Calm observation, clear thought, and decisive action," he said simply. "Most situations resolve themselves if you respond correctly." She smiled faintly. feeling a strange warmth in her chest. A simple joke, sitting beside him, had triggered something extraordinary. Humans had a subtle strength she had never expected, one that could change outcomes without raw power. As the tension faded and the station returned to its normal rhythm, Zyra followed Ethan through the corridors. Her respect and fascination grew with every step. Humans had a way of influencing others, inspiring courage, and adapting to challenges that her species often overlooked. "You are remarkable," she admitted quietly. "I thought I was joking when I sat beside you. I did not expect this." Ethan smiled faintly. "A joke can reveal truths," he said. "Sometimes, small actions lead to unexpected results." Zyra considered his words. She had underestimated humans, just as most aliens did, but now she understood something important. Humans were extraordinary, not because of size, strength, or technology, but because of their courage, adaptability, and presence. As they walked toward a quiet observation deck, the stars stretched endlessly beyond the station's viewport. Zyra leaned against the railing, watching the distant planets and ships glimmer in the void. "I think I am beginning to understand," she said softly. "Humans are different in ways I did not expect." Ethan joined her, calm and steady. "Different can be useful," he said again, his voice gentle. She laughed softly, the sound like wind through crystal. "I suppose I have learned that now," she said, feeling a bond forming between them that went beyond species or culture. The station lights dimmed further, signaling the late cycle. Most beings had retreated to their quarters, leaving the observation deck quiet. Zyra realized that her playful joke, sitting beside him, had triggered more than curiosity. It had revealed the extraordinary nature of a human's calm, courage, and adaptability. Ethan watched the stars, feeling the same quiet anticipation that Zyra did. Humans had a way of noticing opportunities, understanding situations, and influencing outcomes subtly. That simple, playful act of her sitting beside him had started something far greater than either could yet understand. For Zyra, the lesson was clear. Humans were capable of extraordinary actions when needed. And for Ethan, the station offered endless opportunities to observe, learn, and perhaps unknowingly, inspire. As the night deepened, the stars reflected silently off the viewport, indifferent to the events below. But on the station, a quiet shift had begun. One small, playful joke had become the catalyst for something extraordinary, a bond that neither species had anticipated, and a demonstration of the human ability to influence, protect, and adapt in ways even the most advanced aliens could not fully comprehend. The first spark of what could be an enduring friendship, or something more, had ignited. And both of them knew, without saying a word, that the future would bring challenges, surprises, and opportunities that only a human's courage and adaptability could navigate. Zyra glanced at Ethan once more, her golden eyes reflecting the distant stars. She smiled, a mix of amusement, respect, and curiosity. "I wonder what happens next," she murmured. Ethan gave a faint smile. "We will face it as it comes," he said simply. And with that, the quiet confidence and subtle strength of a human presence filled the observation deck, preparing both of them for what was yet to come. The station had returned to its usual rhythm, but something intangible had shifted. Where once corridors were simply paths of movement, now they carried subtle tension and anticipation. The events of the past day, Zyra's playful joke, Ethan's calm handling of the minor threats, had left a mark not only on them but also on the station's inhabitants. Whispers circulated quietly. Humans were not as fragile as most had believed. They had a presence, a calm strength that could influence others in unexpected ways. Zyra moved through the main hub, her mind still tangled in thought. Her golden eyes reflected both curiosity and respect as she watched the busy aliens. She felt a quiet pull toward Ethan, a bond that had grown from a small, joking gesture into something far deeper. She could not explain it fully, not even to herself, but she knew humans were extraordinary in subtle ways. Ethan, meanwhile, walked beside her. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the bustling aliens around them. Yet he was not merely passive. His observation of the station, the people, and the environment was constant. Every detail mattered. Small behaviors, changes in posture, subtle shifts in energy. Humans had a way of noticing what others overlooked, and through that observation they could adapt, influence, and protect. Their path took them past a large window overlooking the docking bays. Several ships glimmered under the station's lights, reflecting off the polished surfaces of the corridors. Zira paused, watching the starry expanse beyond. "It's strange," she said softly. "I came here expecting humans to be weak, afraid, or ordinary. But you—" She trailed off, unsure how to finish the thought. Ethan glanced at her, a faint smile on his face. "Different can be useful," he said again, almost as if repeating a lesson he hoped she would fully understand. Zira laughed softly, the sound like wind through crystal. "I suppose I have learned that now," she said. She realized that her playful joke, sitting beside him, had become more than a moment of amusement. It had sparked a subtle but undeniable connection, one that neither of them could ignore. As they continued their walk, a sudden alert flashed on nearby screens. A critical systems malfunction had occurred in the station's central control hub. Lights flickered, and a low hum of warning echoed through the corridors. Aliens nearby froze, unsure how to respond. The incident was minor compared to what could have happened, but the potential for chaos was high if not addressed quickly. Ethan's calm eyes scanned the situation. He recognized patterns in the alerts, understanding how the systems were interconnected. Without hesitation, he moved toward the hub, Zira following closely. His movements were deliberate, precise, and purposeful. When they arrived, a small team of station engineers was already attempting to resolve the issue. Panic was beginning to spread, and confusion threatened to derail their efforts. Ethan stepped forward, quietly assessing the system, and began issuing clear, concise instructions. Unlike others, he did not raise his voice or demand compliance. His calm, confident presence naturally drew attention and cooperation. Zira watched in awe. Humans had a way of inspiring action without force, guiding others simply by being composed and observant. Her playful joke had triggered something extraordinary in her perception of humans, their ability to act decisively while remaining calm, their skill in influencing those around them subtly yet effectively. Within minutes, the system was stabilized. The engineers, impressed by Ethan's clarity and efficiency, looked at him with newfound respect. Zira stepped forward, her eyes shining. "You make everything seem easier," she said softly. Ethan shrugged lightly, his calm smile unwavering. Understanding the problem and acting logically helps. Panic rarely solves anything. The moment was quiet, but powerful. Zira realized that humans possessed an extraordinary combination of courage, adaptability, and influence that could change outcomes far beyond what any other species could achieve. Her playful gesture, intended as a joke, had revealed this truth in a way she could not have anticipated. Later, they moved to the station's observation deck, where the stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport. The silence between them was comfortable, filled with mutual respect and unspoken understanding. Zira leaned against the railing, her thoughts turning inward. "I wonder if most beings ever notice this about humans," she mused. Ethan glanced at her, his calm eyes meeting hers. "Some do," he replied. "Most do not. But those who pay attention see our strength, not in size or power, but in courage, adaptability, and presence. Zyra nodded slowly, realizing how much truth there was in his words. Her admiration for him had grown beyond curiosity. It had transformed into respect, trust, and a quiet fascination with humans' unique abilities. The observation deck remained quiet for a while, both of them lost in thought. Zyra finally spoke again. "I never expected a simple joke, sitting beside you, to lead to all of this. I didn't realize how influential humans could be." Ethan gave a faint smile. "Small actions often have large effects. Presence, calmness, and courage can trigger responses in ways others do not anticipate." Zyra's gaze softened. "I think I understand now. Humans are extraordinary, not in what they show, but in how they act when it matters." Ethan nodded, his calm confidence reassuring. "And sometimes the simplest gesture, a joke, a smile, or a kind word, can create connections and inspire action." They stayed there for a long time, watching the stars. Zyra reflected on the events that had unfolded, the minor threats, the system's malfunction, and the quiet moments in between. She realized that her perception of humans had shifted entirely. They were capable of inspiring courage, adapting to challenges, and influencing others in subtle but powerful ways. The bond between them had grown from something playful into something meaningful. Zyra felt a quiet warmth in her chest, a recognition that humans had a presence and strength unlike any other species she had encountered. Her playful joke had awakened a connection she could not ignore, a connection that promised respect, trust, and perhaps something more in the future. Ethan, meanwhile, felt the same quiet anticipation. Humans had a way of noticing opportunities, understanding situations, and influencing outcomes through calm observation and decisive action. His presence had subtly shifted Zyra's perspective, and perhaps the perception of other aliens on the station as well. As the station lights dimmed further and most beings retired to their quarters, Zyra turned to Ethan. I never expected this," she admitted softly. "Not the connection, not the way you handled everything, not the way humans can affect others." Ethan's smile remained calm and reassuring. "Different can be useful," he said again. "And humans have ways of acting that are unexpected but effective." Zyra laughed softly, feeling a lightness she hadn't known before. "I suppose I have learned that now," she said, reflecting on how a simple, playful gesture had revealed so much. They stood together in quiet companionship, looking out at the stars. The playful joke of sitting beside him had evolved into mutual respect, understanding, and the beginning of an extraordinary bond. Humans, with their calmness, adaptability, and courage, had influenced the course of events on the station in ways no alien could have predicted. The night continued, and the stars stretched endlessly. Zyra and Ethan remained on the observation deck, each aware of the subtle shift that had occurred. Their connection, born from a simple act of playfulness, had grown into something profound. For Zyra, the lesson was clear. Humans were extraordinary in ways that mattered, not through force or intimidation, but through calm observation, courage, and adaptability. For Ethan, the station offered endless opportunities to act, observe, and inspire quietly. The stars outside twinkled silently, indifferent to the events within the station. But within the corridors, lounges, and observation decks, a subtle change had occurred. One small, playful act, sitting beside a human, had set in motion events that revealed the extraordinary nature of humans. The bond between Zyra and Ethan was no longer a simple curiosity or playful joke. It had become a quiet recognition of strength, respect, and trust that transcended species. And in that quiet, starlit moment, Both of them knew that the future would hold challenges, surprises, and opportunities that only humans' unique courage and adaptability could navigate. Zyra glanced at Ethan one last time, a small, genuine smile on her lips. "I wonder what comes next," she murmured. Ethan returned her gaze, calm, steady, and confident. "Whatever comes, we will face it," he said simply. And with that, the bond that had begun with a playful joke reached its quiet, powerful conclusion. A recognition of humans' extraordinary nature and the potential for connection, trust, and influence that could extend far beyond a single station into the stars themselves.